What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Kill Shot, brought to you by DFS Army. We are breaking down UFC Fight Night, Dern versus Hill, Saturday, May 20th, from a DraftKings fantasy perspective and a betting perspective. Now, with me, as always, my host with the most, the 17-inch guns himself, sleeves off, sleeves optional, with Big Marley. Big Marley, what's going on, my man?
Not a lot of this wasn't my favorite card to research. So I probably won't have a whole lot of enthusiasm to add to this podcast, but you are in round 2 of the MMA championship. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this card. And hopefully you can kind of bring me some stronger leans, because this is a whole toss up for me. Just 12 toss ups kind of.
Yeah, I've dived in deep. Round 2, the championships, really important to get on to round 3. So the way the championships work, they're a 40% elimination each week of the contest. Last week, it started with 100. They whittle down to 40. The 40 will whittle down to 16, and then 16 will go to a live final in Jacksonville on June 25th with the top prize of $250K. I want it. I want a piece of it.
Jacksonville, huh?
Yeah, and I've spent a lot of time diving into this card. I get it. It's a weird card with some weird names, but I think some of these fights are going to be really good. From the DraftKings, though, perspective, what makes this fight interesting, I'm gonna bring up the odds screen, Big Marley. What makes this card interesting is it's another one of these cards without a lot of heavy favorites. There's, Natalia Cristina da Silva, minus 900. Great. Wait, you can't even see that on screen, but there she is. Let me put us on the side here. Beyond that, you got a minus 230, a minus 230, a couple of those. And then it's all these sort of minus 130 plus 110s, minus 120. They're all basically pick'ems. It's a lot of pick'ems on this card. And so diving into the research, and hopefully a strategy is going to be really interesting. We're going to see how it comes together. But I have dived in pretty deep into this card. So hopefully we'll do a little bit of back and forth, but I'll be able to give a little fighter backgrounds on some of these guys. So let's get it going, Big Marley.
All right, let's do it.
You ready for this? All right, first up, first fight of the night, we've got Takashi Sato taking on Themba Garimbo. And both fighters are minus 110 with the inside the distance, a solid minus one, a surprising for me, minus 195. And it's surprising based on how these guys fight. So, Big Marley, this is a classic grappler versus striker matchup, in my opinion, where Themba Garimbo is straight. He just wants to grapple. This dude has no interest really in strike. And it's weird because he's got all this length, super long arms, super tall, but he's not into the striking very much at all. He wants to take it to the ground. In the fights I've seen, he'll throw a couple strikes just to set up his entry. And Sato's weakness has been his ground game. He's a striker, and he just looks terrible off of his back. So it's a really interesting one. The problem here for me was, and the reason this fight, normally I would be like, oh yeah, give me the grappler. But the problem is Themba is a super sloppy grappler. Like, he'll just lose position and just wind up on the bottom. Like, he wants to do it, but he's not that good at it. He's from Zimbabwe and fighting out of like South Africa. That is not a good grappling scene. Although I believe he's been training in Florida at MMA Mass. So how do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I don't think this is a great curtain jerker for DraftKings. On the Sato side, it's really knockout or bust for him to have any chance at 100 points, because he does not throw much volume when the fight is on the feet, and that's where he wants it to be. So the only way he's going to get that 100 points is a first-round knockout, because even a second-round knockout, he's probably not doing enough leading up to it to score 100. It is priced in the mid-range, so we might not need 100 points from him, but that's just the kind of guy I like to fade. I think Themba is actually a capable striker at range here and can keep this real close on the feet, but he does have a much bigger edge if he wants to go to the ground, because that's Sato's weakness, is being put on his back. I think Garimbo's live for a submission on the mat. I think Sato's live for a knockout on the feet. But the only one who's going to score well in a decision win is going to be Garimbo in my mind. So I'm going to go with Garimbo here. I think he can win 2 rounds, if not pull off a submission along the way. I don't really think he's good anywhere, but I just think he's more well-rounded than Sato, and I'm just not a fan of the knockout or bust fighters on DraftKings. So more often than not, I'm fading those guys, and it's going to be no different this week with Sato. I'm not going to have 150 lineups, so I'm just going to X him out of my player pool. It'll be 20 at most for me. And I do want some Themba exposure because I like the guys who should go out there and look to grapple. I just don't know that he's going to have enough success to really score well in his win. I would kind of expect a 70 to 80 point win if he is able to get it done. And that's probably not going to be enough points for the optimal.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I agree with what you said. Sato is definitely knockout or bust. I would not X him out of your player pool though, because he does knock people out. Like he's done it before. He does throw with some power.
Yeah.
And again, Garimbo is very sloppy. Like you watch him, you could tell he's not like a UFC caliber guy at all, or at least he wasn't. I believe he is training. The one thing, MMA Masters is a good camp. And so the one kind of thing that I've been thinking about with Themba is like, all right, we saw a sloppy version of him, but what if now he comes to the US, starts training with MMA Masters with a lot of really good, coaches? Maybe he could up his game a little bit. And so that's the only kind of thing that I'm thinking out with Themba. But as far as his stats, 4.5 takedowns per 15, like he's very aggressive with going for these takedowns, and that's great. And Sato, a long history of just being a striker and only landing 2.28 strikes per minute. That is horrible. And that does not score well on DraftKings at all. So the only thing you need to account for on DraftKings is the first round knockout by Sato. I'm sure.
And the last two people he knocked out are Jason Witt and Ben Saunders, two of the chinniest guys that
ever
are around MMA. So I'm just not impressed on the Sato side.
Yeah, definitely not. This is some low level stuff. And I'm picking Themba here because of the grappling, and I just think he's a better overall DraftKings play. All right, second fight of the night. This is where we get the monster favorite coming in. Natalia da Silva taking on Victoria Leonardo. And there's not that much to say here, except for understanding what kind of fighters. Da Silva is not much of a grappler. Like, she wants to strike. And Victoria Leonardo, I just didn't see anything that's good. She just kind of wants to push you up against the cage, grind on you, and sort of like dirty box to a decision. So I guess my bigger question on this fight for you, Big Marley, is it worth rostering a Da Silva at 9,700? You're locking in a win probably. The inside the distance prop is actually not bad. Minus 145 under 2.5 rounds. Minus 175 ends inside the distance. So it's not bad, but Natalia Silva doesn't really do anything other than that finish that should score particularly well, but she is up against a pretty bad opponent.
Yeah, I don't really like the minute-to-minute aspect on the Silva side for her to pay off a $9,700 price tag, but almost all of her wins, I think other than two, are finishes, and all of Leonardo's losses are finishes as well. So I just think that's what leads to a Silva finish at some point, because I just don't see where Leonardo has an edge in this fight. I just think Silva's better everywhere. She has like 7 or 9 arm bars on her record. Like she was a grappler in my mind, and then she just transformed into this really good, well-rounded fighter when she went to the UFC. But she has looked so good in the UFC that I just don't know how she loses this fight. I think she's best used as a cash game play, or your championships would be a good place for her this week if you have the money.
Yeah.
But she has 2 wins in the UFC, and they both scored 85 DraftKings points. If she scores anywhere around 85 DraftKings points at 9,700, she's not on the optimal lineup. So I'm going to be looking to get away from Silva because I don't think I'm going to be targeting enough underdogs that I can even pay up for that. But if you are dog heavy on this card and you can afford her, then I think she's okay, because I am picking her to get a finish, and that finish could come on the feet or the ground. It's just that I think we're relying on that finish to be early, because I don't think she's scoring well minute to minute.
There's a big gap, between when she was fighting outside of the UFC and when she made her UFC debut. But I would say Victoria Leonardo is her worst opponent yet. I'll take Bleda over Leonardo. I'll take Jasmine over Leonardo. So I think she's getting her worst opponent yet, for whatever that's worth. I agree with you. I don't know. I think in tournaments this week, she's probably fadeable. 9,700 is a lot to pay. And there's a gap, 93 to 97. There's like a massive gap. there are also a lot of fights on this card that should score well for whoever the hell wins it. So I'm pretty fadey on Silva in tournaments. Full fade on Leonardo. I'll have zero exposure to her.
Yeah.
And then in cash games, you want to squeeze Silva in there if you can. So she's a safe win. And I think that's important to know. All right, moving on. That one didn't need too much breakdown, Big Marley. It's like,
yeah, beautiful.
The Silva's winning. So now we get to a fight that I'm really excited about. And I'm going to bust out my notes. I got little notes for this one. But we've got Chase Hooper taking on Nick Fiore. Hooper is a plus 102 underdog, slight underdog. He opened as a favorite. So the line has somewhat flipped, but not seriously. Fiore minus 122. The fight ends inside the distance prop is a strong minus 185 in this one. So, I mean, I think we all know Hooper. Hooper is now Big Marley. I don't know if you know this. They're like, everybody keeps talking about Hooper and getting his man strength because he's all skinny and looks like a little kid. But he's actually 23 years old and he has his man strength. That is you're in the prime of your, he's got a couple more years to continue to fill out his body. But the biggest problem with Hooper that I've seen, he's improving every week, is that he has no power in his hands whatsoever. So when he hits you as a UFC fighter, it doesn't really stop you or worry you at all. He has no knockout power at all in those hands. We saw it in his last fight against Steve Garcia, who's not such a beast in himself, that like when a real man comes in and like has powerful striking and isn't afraid and you can't slow him down, he just knocked Hooper around. Hooper is a great grappler and he's got, I think, like limbs, and he's got elite grappling and submission, but he needs to get it there. And he's not the best with the takedowns, though he is very creative. And this is where this one gets interesting. This opponent, Big Marley, Nick Fiore. So the weakness of Hooper is like he can't really take a lot of striking. He's weak. And it's because he's all tall and skinny. It causes like he's weak. He's not strong. This guy Fiore is also a grappler, though. This guy Fiore is not a striker. And what I think is going on here, I mean, it appears that the UFC looked for the worst possible, the easiest, the closest thing they could to like giving him someone he could beat. That's what I think happened here. I think the UFC said, hey, this is our worst guy. He's completely unproven. And we want to give somebody, we want to give a style to Hooper that he can beat. This is a Renzo Gracie black belt, Nick Fiore. So how do you see this one going down? If you take a look at Fiore's wins, they're against professional losers. That's a win, right? I'm going to go through them because it's important to see that this is real. That's his other win. Okay. Now this guy, okay, he was 8-4. He continued to lose. All right, so this is close to a real win, this Andre Borgs guy. But wait, it goes on. Jerome Mickle, this guy, they all have something in common, Big Marl. I'm going through all of them. So these were fake opponents. This guy's unproven.
Yeah, I mean, definitely unproven, and there's not enough film out there. I can't cap this fight correctly. I won't be betting it. But I'm very anti-Chase Hooper. He's just got terrible striking, even worse striking defense. He's only blocking or missing 1 out of every 3 shots his opponent's throwing at him. And when he does eat them, he's just taking so much damage. And I just think that's going to get worse and worse over time. And Fiore came in on short notice in his UFC debut and looked tough against Rebecca. And I think that someone in the athletic commission would get arrested if they matched up Rebecca versus Hooper, because Rebecca would just kill Hooper. Like Hooper has nothing other than a submission from bottom chance against that guy. And I don't know how he can wrestle. He's not a good wrestler, so I don't know that he can out wrestle Fiore. I don't know that he's a better grappler than Fiore. And I think that what I saw offensively from Nick Fiore, is that he's a better striker and more powerful striker. And if he can connect on Hooper's chin, I think he's just as live as anybody else to knock him out. So I'm on the Fiore side of this one. I don't think that we can dock him because he beat Jay Ellis. I just think that if he lost to Jay Ellis, then sure, easy fade all time. But I don't agree. And this guy beat him, the guy that was stepped up to the plate to fight him. We have to take that away from him. So I just think that, maybe Hooper would have beat Jay Ellis as well, but I'm not going to take that away from him because he fucking should beat Jay Ellis. But I just don't want to pick Hooper against any UFC talent. Fiore might not be UFC talent, but he is training with Rob Font, Calvin Cater over at the New England Cartel. And I think those guys are great training partners to go up against a guy like Chase Hooper. So I'm going to go with the unknowns, take Fiore here. But I also think he's going to be pretty popular. And if he's going to be much more popular than Hooper, I'm not against just going to the other side, hoping for that early submission. Hooper can fight at a high pace, whether it looks good or not. He can definitely fight at a high pace, and he's always live for a late finish with a lot of grappling leading up to it. So if Hooper wins, he's definitely live to break the slate every single time out. I think it's a good fight to target just as a whole, but I'm going to pick Nick Fiore in this one.
Yeah, I'm going the opposite way here, Big Marl. You said a UFC talent. I don't see anything about Nick Fiore.
Yeah, and I'm probably just too impressed with his short notice loss to Rebecca. Like, I thought there were moments there where I thought he might beat that guy.
No, come on. No, there were. Listen, Rebecca put a beating on him from start to finish in that fight. But he didn't finish him.
He hurt him once or twice, and he was starting to slow down to the point where I was like, man, this Fiore guy looks like he has more gas left in the tank than Rebecca. And I think it's because I might have had a bet, or I was just super heavy DraftKings on Rebecca. So I was sweating it out as if I don't want this Nick Fiore to do well, and he's doing better than I thought. But I've just never been impressed with Hooper.
A little bit of puckers there. You know what? Here, my thing is this. Listen, Chase Hooper has UFC wins. Now, this guy, Peter Barrett, was not a UFC fighter, so that's a fakie. But Daniel Tamer, also kind of not a UFC fighter, in fairness. But Felipe Colares, may rest in peace. Fucked up accident.
Got cut from the UFC.
But he was a real UFC fighter that had wins in the UFC. But more importantly than that, for me, is he reminds me of Nick Fiore. He was primarily a grappler. Nick Fiore's nature is not stopping takedowns. It's going for takedowns. It's getting into grappling. He is not trained as a fighter to avoid grappling exchanges. He wants to get into those. And with Hooper, you don't want to get into grappling exchanges. He's got the long limbs. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Neil Magny. It's the same style with those limbs. The minute, if he's able to put that shit on you, it's so long. The hands are twice the size of a normal human hand lengthwise. The legs are 1.5 feet longer than a normal person's legs. And he's just able to do things. He's got gifted length, and he's able to do things that most people can't. And so Hooper, I think, is a better. I saw Fiore on the ground on his back against Rebecca. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't doing shit. He was just surviving. He was just surviving in that fight, in my opinion.
I think he was threatening right away.
He tried, but
his rubber guard looking stuff.
But he was just surviving there. It wasn't like he got a reversal. There was none of that.
But you also can't expect Hooper to go in with those double legs that Rebecca was going in with to get the fight on the ground.
I think Hooper is a better wrestler than we're giving him credit for.
Oof. I disagree.
I'm telling you, I think he might be a little better than we're giving him credit for. He's going to dive for your leg. He's going to twist it. He's going to do shenanigans.
That's not wrestling, though, in my opinion.
No, but he'll also do shenanigans to get. If he can't get you down, he's going to start pulling shenanigans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think this, from what I saw of Fiore, he got taken down no problem by. And again, it's hard because this Mateus guy was.
But Mateus couldn't finish him in 15 minutes. What makes us think that Hooper? I think Rebecca beats Hooper in a grappling match. Early. I think he's so much stronger, but
he would just knock the shit out of Hooper. I don't have any doubt. Listen, Hooper's a very, very flawed fighter, but I'm just saying this guy, Nick Fiore, has not shown that he belongs in the UFC at all. He didn't win his way in. Look he got into the UFC off a 6-19 beating this guy. This is not a real fighter. This is just a guy who goes out there to get paid. My guess is these fights happen every week. You know what I mean? Like every couple of weeks, he goes in there, he takes his L. He usually lets himself get submitted real quick. Probably says to the opponent, listen, don't hit me in the face. Don't punch
What
me in the
happens if he
face.
does hit Hooper in the face? Can
Hooper
Hooper
can take a
take
punch.
it?
I
don't
think
know.
Hooper can take a punch better than you think.
Can he?
He can't deliver a punch. That's his
He was
problem.
dropped like 3 times on the first round of his last fight.
Well, that's Garcia caught him, but I'm also pretty sure that fight took place. I'm not sure the weight. I think that fight might have taken place at 145. He's going up to 155 for this one. He's gonna have a little more
he just
meat
takes
on
so
the
much damage. Like every single fight, he just eats so much damage, and like that was like I mean, that was just watching that one. I was like, this guy has got nothing left, and he can't take a punch anymore.
It's horrible to watch that one, but I would watch the Kolaris fight where if it's a grappling fight, all of a sudden Hooper is
he was
really
kind of losing that. He only won because Kolaris completely gassed out.
He's tough to deal with. He's a tough guy to deal with in the grappling exchanges, is all I'm saying. He's tough to deal with. But he was also losing, in fairness, he was also losing the fight against the other non-UFC guy. Like, he was losing the fight against Peter Barrett as well. Don't get me wrong. Like, he was losing that fight until he got the heel hook in round 3. Like, he loses that decision. So that's a sketchy one.
I think it's just a good fight to target. I don't have a real lean either way. But if you're making multiple lineups, this is the one that you should throw both of them into.
Definitely. And I would have both sides of it for sure, because Hooper can get knocked the fuck out. And on the flip side, Hooper scored 140 points or something in the fight against Kolaris. So if he's doing his thing and able to execute it.
And he gave up like 140 points in his fight against Garcia. So yeah, either way.
That's right. So Big Marley on the Fiore side. I am on the Hooper side of that one. Now, Big Marley, this next fight is like the polar opposite when it comes to scoring potential. And I'm talking, wait, let me make sure that's on the list here in a row. Yes, it is. So Ilir Latifi taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. Rodrigo's now minus 200. This number has been climbing. There it is. And I like that bet. But he is minus 200. And the comeback on Ilir Latifi is plus 170. Fight ends inside the distance. A little nod to the fact that they're heavyweight at minus 150. But I have to say, that's almost like leaning to go to decision, considering these are heavyweight fighters. Now, this one's an interesting one, Big Marley, because Nascimento is a bit of a grappling heavyweight. It's like a poor man's. Wait, who do we see? Who do we see? Carl Williams or a rich man's Carl Williams? I don't know his back, but he's like Carl Williams style. He's a grappling heavyweight going up against Ilir Latifi, who has 100% takedown defense. But Ilir Latifi does not throw any strikes. He just stands there and pushes you against the cage. So this one is weird for me. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, I would like to fade it because I don't see either one of these guys scoring well minute to minute. But we have like minus 155. Fight doesn't go to decision. And if either one of these guys gets a first round finish, then they're live for the optimal. So I don't know, but I think it's a better MME fight than it is like a single entry. I don't want to hand build with this fight, but I think Latifi is in play for an early knockout. He's got power. Nascimento's hittable, but Nascimento's a lot taller and longer than Latifi. I think he's the better minute-to-minute striker. I just don't see him knocking out Latifi, which he would need to do to score well. And I don't know that he could take Latifi down, but if he can, I think Latifi's in a lot more trouble off his back than Nascimento is off his back if Latifi takes him down. So I just don't think Latifi's going to do much minute to minute. Even if he does get a takedown or two, he probably isn't going to land a whole lot of strikes on the ground. I doubt he submits this guy, maybe a ground and pound knockout, but I just think we're playing for the knockout either way on the Latifi side. I think the ownership will come with him, and I'm just going to get away from it. But, man, I really don't want to target Nascimento either at 9,000. But I think he's the more likely finisher, whether it be on the – I don't know if he's the more likely knockout guy. But I've just never been sold on Latifi's overall striking, and I think that his submission game is pretty decent. I don't know if you can submit Latifi or not, so I just don't know, man. I have no idea on this fight, but I do lean Nascimento as my pick. I just want to avoid it, I guess, on DraftKings. I would really love to avoid both sides, X amount of my player pool, and not have to worry about it. But I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know how you submit a guy in Latifi who doesn't have a neck. You can't choke a man unless there's a neck to choke, and he does not possess a neck. Listen, this is going to be a low-scoring fight. You nailed it. How does Latifi score well? The dude is landing less than 2 strikes per minute, so he needs to knock you out in a hurry, which could happen, of course. But he's 40. He's a light heavyweight that's moved up to heavy because he's like, fuck it, I'm 40. I'm not cutting down to 205 anymore. And he the one thing he has going for him are that he does have takedowns, but is he going to get a takedown? He might, yeah, but is that going to what's that going to really do? So yes, I could see Latifi getting a takedown, but even if he does it, he's not going to. He generally is not going to finish the fight from that position. I would just think Nascimento will just get back up, and then Latifi's not going to throw any strikes along the way. He's going to lay on top of him. He's always afraid of gassing out. He's not going to throw any volume. The gas tank is terrible. And the flip side, Nascimento just I don't see him getting any takedowns here. Latifi is like a little ball of fire. Like, you're not taking him down. He's never been taken down in the UFC, and that is a long storied career, including guys like Corey Anderson. Like, he's gone up against guys who want to grapple, and they weren't able to take him down. And then with Nascimento, 4 strikes per minute. I mean, how does that score? That's not going to score well. So I think Nascimento is going to win this fight. I'm absolutely picking him to win. I think you could put him in your parlays because just on volume alone, he's just going to win this decision. He's probably going to win a decision. You could probably pair him up in your parlays with other pieces. I don't think I want to straight bet it at this point at -200, but I think he wins the fight. But I don't think he scores well enough to be relevant on DraftKings. So for me, it's a pass on DraftKings completely.
Yeah, I think Latifi first round knockouts are most likely chance for the optimal here. So I guess I'd rather have him if I was going to use this fight.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And paying up for Nascimento means you're effectively not using Joaquin Buckley or Dern or somebody else who you could pay up for, like I don't know, the Slava Claus or whatever the hell that guy's, one of these other guys that have a much better chance of getting a finish. So I think there are some high scoring potential fights on this card. Fuck that one. All right. Next up, this is a tough one. Orion Cosi taking on Gilbert Urbina. Cosi's a -120. It's another pick 'em. -120, very slight favorite. Come back on Urbina +100. Fight ends inside the distance, -165, Big Marley. So Urbina is a Ultimate Fighter alumnus. Did you watch that season?
I did, but it wasn't very memorable. It was one of my least favorite seasons, and I don't think I've been back since.
There you go. I believe he got eliminated from the show by Trayshawn Gore, and then they brought him back for the final because I guess Gore got himself injured, and I think he lost to Battle in the final. And Battle, we just saw winning a fight against Gabriel Green. Okay, Battle's pretty good. He's taking on Orion Cosi. Even odds here. Both of these guys are well-rounded. I think Cosi is much more of a grapple-focused fighter, where Urbina seems to be. Let me bust out the old notes here, but Urbina seems to be a little bit more well-rounded, a little bit of power. Both will go for a lot of takedowns. Here we go. Yeah, well-rounded, can grapple. Cosi. Landed a crazy suplex in one of his fights against Blood Diamond, which was an awesome move that I really appreciated. With Urbina, I noticed that he does seem to get tired as the fight goes on, and I think Cosi does have a little bit better gas tank, and he did gas out a little bit in his UFC debut, but he was on short notice fighting. Now I can't remember the name, but let me pull that up here. But yeah, Cosi kind of got a little tired in his UFC debut, but he was on a short notice debut there. And let me pull this up here. He was fighting my boy
Phil Rowe.
Phil Rowe, yeah. He gassed a little bit in that fight, but like, it was short notice. I did see that Urbina seems to gas in all of his fights. Like he is fire in round 1, and then he seems to slow down. So how do you see this one going down? Because this is super close.
Yeah, man, I think it could be an important fight on DraftKings, but at the same time, I hope that if there's a fight that is canceled, it's this one.
So you don't have to make a decision?
I just don't have any real lean on this one at all. I think that Kosuke is the better wrestler, and he has more one-punch power. I think Urbina is the more likely minute winner on the feet and probably the better grappler, but I don't know that he can get the fight to the ground because I would take Kosuke's wrestling here. So to me, it was just a coin flip, and I took the guy who had the plus next to his name, which was Urbina. But they both, I think, have terrible cardio. It could look real ugly if this fight goes into the third round, and I have no idea who would win in the third round of this fight. So, like I said, man, it was just a literal coin flip. If Kosuke had the plus next to his name, I would have picked him. But I think that Kosuke, man, I don't know. I mean, I think Kosuke can win by any method. But shit, Urbina could win by any method too. So I really have no idea. I think the way that you play this fight is on DraftKings. You just take your shots at this mid-range fight, hope that one of them can dominate or win early, and that maybe leads you to 100K. But I'm there's no way I'm betting this fight because I can't see how it plays out in my head. I can't cap it correctly at all. I could tell you that Kosuke should be anywhere from a 35 to 65% favorite. Like, I just have no idea on this one. So how do you see it going down?
Yeah, it looks like Cosi actually opened at minus 160. So a little bit of money has sort of leveled this one out, and it's kind of agreeing with you that the bettors don't really know. So they're kind of leveling out the two of them. I did see some things here, though, that I think were telling. If you look at Cosi's 3 fights, like, one thing I know, like when he fought Mac Dixon in the Contender Series, Dixon was exclusively a grappler, and Cosi actually went straight striking in that, which was interesting and different from what I saw in all of his other film, where he's definitely primarily a grappler. Now, it's possible that he went heavy grappling against Rowe and Blood Diamond because those guys are strikers, and they were, you know, it's like, hey, I'm in a better spot on the ground with these guys. But I liked what I saw from Cosi. I liked it more than what I saw from Urbina. Urbina, to me, comes out fire, but just does not have the tank. So by round 2, he's kind of slowing down. I think if he can't get it done in round 1, he's going to have problems here. I think Cosi will have a better gas. Both have issues with gas, but I'm going to give Cosi a little bit of a pass because
Urbina does have more experience in 15-minute fights, though, throughout his career.
Urbina.
Yeah,
but generally he doesn't have a lot of fights.
And like his gas out against Brian Battle, that was a very late notice takeover for Gore situation too. So they're both gassing out on more so late notice fights. But Kosuke is just a type of guy who gasses out because he's all muscle and everything he throws is all power, or he's wrestling, and those are the things that wear you out the fastest. So I don't know that it's like he's not doing his cardio. It's just that he does tiring things in the octagon.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch his fight, so he went to round 3 quite a bit. I don't know. I'm definitely. This is a close fight, and it's difficult. Like, if I'm playing a cash game, I don't think you should really decide. Both guys go for takedowns. Both guys have striking. There's no like glaring like, oh, striker versus grappler. This doesn't come off that way to me. But I'm gonna lean Cosi to get this one. Another little interesting side note is this is like the battle of like MMA bros, because both of these guys have like lots of brothers also in the UFC.
Yeah, three Urbinas and 2 Koses.
Yeah, it's the bros. So the MMA family battle. But I hate to say it, but the Urbina family hasn't been that good. Listen,
yeah, I'm not big on backing Urbinas at all. I don't think I've ever picked an Urbina, actually.
That's like a last name that usually loses in the UFC. I'm sorry. I said it. I'm going with Cosi.
Yeah. I'm not against Kosuke. It's just I can't cap it. So
all right. I like that fight though. It's gonna be action. I have a feeling that will be a very high scoring fight on DraftKings. I feel like it's a fight you want a lot of exposure to. And I think the loser and the winner will both score well. I think both guys are going to get takedowns. There'll be reversals. They'll be sloppy. And if it goes for 3 full rounds, we could get a really, really high scoring potential stack on a card where there aren't many stack situations or there aren't many locked in winners. It's a really interesting, if one were discussing a championship potential lineup and one were looking for a fight to play both sides of, on this card, that one stands out as probably one of the best for that purpose. Not saying I'm going to do that, but I'm just saying that's something that exists.
That'd be ballsy.
Yeah, that'd be ballsy. All right. Next up, we've got, let me go back to the screen here. We've got Karolina Kabulkavich resurging in her career, maybe, taking on Vanessa Demopolos. And this is another super close fight, Big Marley. Minus 130 for Karolina. Comeback on Vanessa, plus 112. I'm going to assume this is a goes to decision fight. Fight goes the distance, minus 250. So, interesting, we saw Karolina use a lot of takedowns in her last fight because it's not something she ever did in her career. But she was up against a nasty striker and figured this was my best bet in Silva Juarez, right? So she goes to a heavy takedown game. We're like, who is this? Against Sylvania Gomez Juarez, right? We had never seen it before from Karolina, not her whole career for the most part, but there it was. But generally, I think Karolina is more of a striker. Just a little kickboxing style, old school women's MMA. Had a horrible losing streak here, but against really good opponents. The losing streak in hindsight doesn't look that bad, except for the Jessica Panay fight, which is a rough one.
Well, and she got the shit kicked out of her in that Yan Xianan fight.
Yeah, but Yan Xianan is kicking the shit out of a lot of people. Yan is good, right? Like she's going to be kicking a lot of ass, right? And taking some names along the way. That's Yan. She's no joke. And she's getting better, but she was, even 2020, she was no joke compared to somebody like Karolina. And then Vanessa Demopolos was almost like kind of like a joke when she first came to the UFC. I don't know if it's this picture or what, but she took a couple of L's early, but she's on a 3-fight win streak. From what I saw of Demopolos, she is primarily a grappler, jiu-jitsu practitioner, and I like that in my ladies. I like that in my lady fighters. She goes for a lot of takedowns. Let me pull up her stats here because the I think the UFC stat numbers are misleading for Vanessa, and I want to show you what I mean. Like I said, I dived in. I got a big contest this week. So you're only seeing with Vanessa 2 takedowns, 1 takedown, and she didn't get any against Aldrich or Corey McKenna. So you're like, oh, she doesn't always go for takedowns. What is she about? What does she do? So in this Gomez Juarez fight, she got knocked down. She actually got a knockdown. Gomez Juarez unwisely jumped on top of her, and she was able to get the armbar no problem. Jinyu Frey just has good takedown defense, and she tried. I think she attempted like 8 or 9 takedowns in that fight. She only landed 1. So that's Jinyu Frey's got 88% takedown. She's good at that. And then she had no problem taking down Maria Oliveira and did so at will and when she needed to. So Vanessa is primarily a grappler, but her striking's okay. I think she could probably strike with Karolina and be even with her in the striking. So that's why I'm favoring Vanessa, because I see her striking is kind of the same shit as what Karolina doesn't do anything scary. She's just in there kickbox points fighting. And she doesn't really have much grappling. She got submitted by Jessica Panay, no problem, from top position. I think Vanessa's the more well-rounded fighter. What do you say, Big Marley?
I don't know. I mean, I think they're both well-rounded, but I would give the striking edge to KK, the grappling edge to Demopolis. I just don't think that Demopolis is a good wrestler, and I also don't like that she doesn't go for takedowns when she should go for takedowns. So I just see this fight playing mostly on the feet and KK winning 2 rounds to get her hand raised in a decision. But that's not going to score very well. I don't even know that she's going to 10x. So I plan on getting away from this fight. I do think they both have upside, but I think that they'll both also have some ownership too, where I just don't really want leverage on either one of them. So I'd rather fade the fight. But if either one of them makes it into like my 6th spot, I'm fine with either. I think I would prefer Demopolis though, because she is cheaper and she has the grappling upside, in my opinion, which has the higher ceiling on DraftKings. So even though I'm picking her to lose, KK is definitely past her prime. So if Demopolis can't get this fight to the ground, I think she could have a lot of success on the mat. So I would prefer her. I just can't trust her wrestling at all. I think that KK could also have success on top position as well of her own. So I'll take KK to win 29-28 in this one and just not be on the optimal lineup.
Yeah, I'm definitely going the opposite here. I'm on Demopolos, and I think she can get a takedown and even potentially submit Carolina in this fight, but I think it'll be close. But I do think that Demopolis will get that takedown or two along the way to 29-28 it for herself. I think it's noteworthy on KK's resurgence that it came against a Felice Herrig who retired immediately after that fight. And then again against Gomez Juarez, who stinks and has no wrestling whatsoever. Like if you put her on her back, she has absolutely no chance of getting up from that. So
you could say the same thing about Demopolis' wins.
Yes, I mean, Jinyu Frey's not that bad. Jinyu Frey,
Maria Oliveira, pure striker. Jinyu Frey, pure striker.
Well, she beat Sylvania Gomez Juarez. Like it's the same girl, so yeah, definitely. But I'm going to give her a little bit of credit for the Jinyu Frey win. That was a bigger win. Yeah, Maria Oliveira is exactly the same as Gomez Juarez. She has no striking. She has no takedown defense and no grappling whatsoever. Vanessa was easily able to dominate her. But again, between these two, give me these choices. Give me the girl who can grapple a little bit. Plus, and again, little insider info. I believe she's with Factory X, and she's new to that team. And much like the improvement we're seeing with Yan Zhao now that she's with Alpha Male, we could see improvement fight to fight with Demopolos, where Carolina at 38, she's not changing. She's looked exactly the same for the last 9 years. Like she has changed nothing in her game. So I think Demopolis is on the up and coming, and I think Carolina is on the way out. Give me Demopolis, and I have a bet on it.
Ballsy.
Hell yeah. Dude, if I'm going to spend my time watching tape on these women, I'm betting it. When I get a lean, I'm betting it every time. I got to believe in something. All right.
Card.
All right. Hate the card. All right. Next up, we've got Vyacheslav Borschev taking on Mahasate. Borschev is a -1. I thought this was moving. Nope, it's still right there. He is a -160 favorite. The comeback on Mahasate is +140. Fight ends inside the distance is a very solid big mark. This is a fight you have to have. It's -240 to end inside the distance. Stylistically, this is striker versus striker. Borshev's is nasty. Borshev's a nasty striker, and Mahasate is he's got size. Mahasate, yeah, big, strong striker, cannot grapple. Great elbows. Love his elbows. And Borschev, what do they call him? Slava Claus?
Yeah.
Slava Claus. This dude is like a boxer. He also cannot grapple. So neither one of these guys can grapple, and they're like, all right, let's not grapple this time. He's a nasty striker. Love the combos that Borschev puts out there. Really throws with a lot of power, especially to the body. And I believe he got a finish to the body in one of his fights, which you don't see that often, especially at this. I think it was against Dakota Bush, liver shot. He throws really, really great combinations. So how do you see this one going down, Big Marl?
Yeah, I think it should be a fun striking match. I don't think it's one we have to have, though. I think the odds suggest that we should have it because it ends inside the distance. But that is just a pure knockout on both sides. They're both plus 1,800 by submission. They're not grapplers, so we're not looking for minute-to-minute points in this one. So instead of going all in on this one, I would rather just go at whatever their TKO odds are. So for For Slava, I'd rather, 35 to 40%. He's my preferred play because I do think he's the better striker in this one. I think he's more likely to get the knockout. And then bring it back with 20, 25%. Mahasate in case he gets the TKO, because I just don't expect either one of them to look for takedowns. And I also don't think that we're going to have a fight in a phone booth where they're both landing 10 strikes a minute. It's going to be a technical striking match, which does not score well on DraftKings unless you get the finish. So I'd rather have this in 50 to 70% of my lineups. And I do favor Slava because from what I've seen, I think the film's limited on Mahasate, but Borschev just looks like a really good striker. And I think he is our more likely minute-to-minute striker who wins a decision. And he's also got some nasty TKOs. So he's my pick, but I'm not going to be as heavy as the field might be on this one because I think he's very live to just win a decision. And that's, I think, probably what I picked as my official outcome is him to win 2 or 3 rounds on the cards in a technical striking match. That should be fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I agree. It's interesting because Mahasate has been fighting like much smaller guys than himself, and I really like visually thought he was a large for the division guy, but I'm seeing that 5'11", 6 feet. So Borschev is about the same size as Mahasate, and like I said, there's very little tape on these guys outside of the UFC fight. Borschev, though, it's very clear he's nasty when he's on the feet, which is why every single opponent, Casey and Mike Davis and Dakota Bush, we're all trying to put him on his back the whole fight. Mahasate is not doing that. He's going to strike with him. And, Borschev is plus 110 to win inside the distance. I like his chances of doing that, but I do think you should also, exposure-wise, it's about a 40%er for me. And yes, Mahasate, puncher's chance, but I think Borschev is probably going to be the better striker. But you got to give Mahasate a puncher's chance because they're both going to be throwing fists, and these are big dudes. And like I said, Mahasate got some nasty elbows. Like you get up and close. Love the nasty elbow that he throws. So that could be a factor in this one. But I am going with Borschev to get a finish probably in the second round.
And I wouldn't go off the ITD line for my exposure. I'd go off the TKO specifically line for both of them.
There we go. I agree. All right, couple veterans coming up next in Michael Johnson taking on Carlos Ferreira. Ferreira minus 160, slight favorite. Come back on MJ plus 140. Fight ends inside the distance is surprisingly high, minus 205. And I don't know, Big Marley. I don't know about this fight ending inside the distance at all. I think it has decision written all over it, but we'll see. Stylistically, I mean, we know these two guys, right? Michael Johnson, he's a striker, has wrestling background, can stop a takedown. Carlos Ferreira is a sort of a submission specialist, good striker, classic Brazilian fighter, has the jiu-jitsu black belt, can submit you, but I don't think he's got, basically he reminds me of Gilbert Burns. That's the guy he kind of reminds me of. He does not have the greatest wrestling. I would say less good wrestling than Burns. And I do not think he's going to be able to take Michael Johnson down in this fight, Big Marley. I don't think so. I think he plays out on the feet. So who wins a striking battle between these two guys?
Yeah, I would slightly favor Johnson in a striking match. And I think he's a decent wrestler where if he can, you don't want to take Ferreira down, but if you can keep this fight on the feet, I think he's live to win 2 rounds. But I do think it's very close. And I think it could just take one takedown or one leg grab for Ferreira to end up getting a submission. And I'm pretty sure I've lost more than one bet on Michael Johnson as he was winning, and then he gets leg locked or fucking ankle locked.
It totally happened
before. This is my least favorite way to lose because you're always winning until that happens. And he's the guy who would let that happen more than once. So I think he's always live to be submitted in any round. But minute-to-minute scoring, I just think most of this fight takes place on the feet. I don't think either one of them has a 100-point upside without a finish. So it's another one that I would prefer to get away from. But at the
Michael
same time, I'm
Johnson-
picking Michael Johnson to win. He's an underdog. I like underdogs, so I picked to win. So I'd rather have exposure to him. And I think his ceiling, like he can put up decent pace on the feet, but his ceiling is going to be the knockout, whereas Ferreira's ceiling is the submission.
I feel like the knockout for Michael Johnson is just super unlikely. Ferreira's tough.
Yeah.
Michael Johnson doesn't have so much power. It's plus 275. So here it is, plus 375 on Unibet. It's not on DraftKings yet. I really trust the DraftKings line on some of these. So I'm not seeing it here. I don't know if you can see what he is, but if Michael Johnson doesn't knock out Ferreira, he is not going to be in the nuts lineup. He's just going to land. I mean, what does Michael Johnson do? Hold on. I'll show you. Like, we know what Michael Johnson does when he wins, and it's not very good, right? He doesn't score. There it is, 64 against the Akisi. This was a finish, so I'm not looking at that. But when he's won, he has not scored very well when he wins a decision. It's horrible. Look at this, 53. And Melvin Gillard, who stinks, 57. So this is a guy who does not score well enough in a win to where we need to make a decision on it. Fuck him. I'm out. Except for the KO possibility.
Yeah. It's just that I feel like I'm going to be hunting for dogs on this card. So he's one that I picked to win, which is what puts him in play.
So many live dogs. I don't need that one. I'm going to avoid it other than that KO upside. As far as Ferreira goes, one thing I would say about Ferreira is like this guy fought the best guys, and like, okay, he lost to them, but these losses, like all of his losses, Sir Gregor Gillespie, like, are you shitting me? That guy is so good. And Benil Dariush, what? Right? Mateus Gamrot, also very, very good. So like his losses, Dustin, Dariush, show me a loss against a medium guy like Michael Johnson. He doesn't have wins. Like he beat Anthony Pettis. I don't know. I think Ferreira's just a better fighter. And he'll find a way to get it done. He's only lost to the best of the best. But I also don't think this is a good DraftKings play because it's really hard to take Michael Johnson down. And I don't really see, it's much like the main event. I'm not really sure how he gets the finish. He could knock Michael Johnson out. That could happen. I'm on the Ferreira side. I think Michael Johnson is fadeable on this card. But you're not, he's plus 140 and quite a lot of people are picking him to win. So I'm with you, but I'm not seeing that. And
I think I've made only 2 or 3 lineups so far, but I don't think I have Johnson or Ferreira.
That's what I'm saying. Like, these guys are the furthest thing from anybody I want to fucks with on the big lineup either, if you know what I'm saying. Like they're not in the mix at all. For me.
I mean, I guess if I was in that one, it's more of a cash game type of lineup. I think Johnson would be in play for me.
Yeah, I just would rather use.
Yeah, if you have a lineup that you like more, I'd still be
women. There's just women there that are going to last for 3 rounds for sure. Yeah. They might lose, but they're getting you 40.
Yeah, I just think that there's underdogs that have much higher ceilings than Johnson, but I feel better about Johnson winning than I do those underdogs. And Johnson also has a higher floor than those underdogs.
That's fair. And Johnson is definitely he is a underdog that can win his fight for sure. And it probably will win it if it plays out chalk, where he keeps it standing, which he should be able to do. All right. We're getting there. Andre Fialjo taking on Joaquin Buckley. Fialjo, a plus 190 underdog. The comeback, or Buckley, a minus 230 favorite in this one, and a fairly high minus 240 ends inside the distance prop on this one. Big Marley, remember the kick that heard round the world for Buckley in Abu Dhabi?
Oh, I fucking remember. Yeah, I lost money on that one.
That was so awesome. That was who was the opponent? Was that Aldo Rezek Al Hassan?
No, it was African guy. I don't even remember his name anymore.
Impa Kasange.
Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah, that was great, man. You know what? How many kids after seeing that are like practicing that at the dojo? Like grab my leg, do the the flip and land on your feet. That was awesome. So now this is an interesting fight. Fialjo, pure striker, but he's got some power in his hands, especially in round one. He's got power in round one. And Buckley's just a beast. He's pretty well-rounded. Power in all 3 rounds. How do you see this one going down, Big Marl?
Yeah, I think this one ends in a knockout. Both of them have one-punch knockout power. They've both been knocked out 4 or more times already in their careers. And I've mentioned already in this show, I don't like knockout or bust fighters, which is what both of these guys are. But I think we do get a knockout, 3/4 of the time out of this fight. So I'm just fine targeting both of them. I want this fight in about 3/4 of my lineup, just projecting that knockout to happen that often. We have fight ends in round 1 plus 155. Fight ends in rounds 1 or 2 minus 157. And on a card where I just don't feel good about, a lot of fights scoring well in general, this is one I just want to throw into both lineups. I think Buckley is the better overall striker with more power. He is coming down in weight here, which is something to mention. So we never really know how him or his chin will look in that case. But from what I've seen, I mean, he should be the more powerful guy. And what's his name? Fialjo was cracked by that Cameron Van Camp guy, which just is such a bad image in my mind where I think he's less durable than Buckley, not counting that weight drop. Who knows what that does to him? I'm not a fucking scientist, but I'm picking Buckley to get the knockout. So I prefer him. He's going to be the one that I'm targeting more so. But when I'm just making lineups, if I'm building a lineup, Buckley's already in there, it's not working out for me, I'll probably X Buckley out, put Fialjo in, and get back to seeing what I could do with other favorites. It's just going to be one I want to target heavily in GPPs, but don't touch it in cash games. Look for safer floors in cash games. They both have 0-point floors. We're only going for that knockout, but they have fight ends inside the distance anywhere from minus 225 to minus 300, which is 70 to 75%. So that's where I want it in my exposure pool.
I mean, I'll just I've got Buckley's fight history on screen here, right? And he's so good, but yet can you trust a guy who got knocked out by Alessio Di Chirico, who got knocked out by Chris Curtis, who knocks out nobody? He never gets a finish. But he got finished by Chris Curtis. So there are some real question marks. And then he's got really quality wins, especially the Duraev win. So he can Impa Kasange, the spinning back kick, of course. This is a weird one. But I think Fialjo is more fraudulent than Buckley is.
Yeah. I mean, in general, they're guys that I would like to bet against. Because they're knockout guys. People like knockout guys. They're willing to bet on them, and I'd fade the knockout more often than not.
Yeah, I see Buckley is a little bit better. Buckley can get a takedown. He has that skill set. By the way, against Razak Al Hassan, he got a bunch of takedowns.
Yeah, and I do favor Buckley in a decision as well, which is another reason. Like when I'm going both knockout or bust fighters, I would rather just target the guy I think can be the minute winner as well.
There, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think Buckley is very. I think Fialjo is live for a first round finish though, and Buckley is very willing to lose a fight by being knocked out in the first round. So it's too scary for having a lot of confidence. But if I'm picking who the better fighter is, who the guy who probably has a better gas tank is, as shocking as this sounds, it's actually Buckley. I think Buckley has better cardio, a more well-rounded skill set. Fialjo just a stiff striker, but he's got knockout power in those hands. And you know what? Buckley gets knocked out, so it is not safe. All right, moving on. Coco main event. Lupi Godinez taking on Emily Ducote, with Godinez coming in as a minus 150 favorite and Ducote plus 130 as the underdog. Fight goes the distance, a solid minus 300. Looks like it could go the distance, Big Marley. Now, I don't know. You tell me, what's up with Lupi? What? I'm just gonna ask this. What's up with Loop? She's one of the better grapplers that I've seen in the division, but she just sometimes just doesn't do it. Why?
Yeah, we got Cloud in the comments here just kind of telling you, like, she probably has that Curtis Blade syndrome. Like, she's winning some fights on the feet. She thinks she'd go out there and just show how well-rounded she is, possible title contender. But that's just really not the case. I mean, she is a decent striker. She's got solid boxing. It's just that she's not ahead of the field in the striking, whereas she looks like one of the better wrestlers in the entire division, and it should be a lot easier for her to go out there and wrestle and dominate fights, win clearly on the scorecards, rather than having these close fights with Cynthia Calvillo and Angela Hill. 2 fights she could have looked like a big favorite if she wanted to wrestle more often than she did. So that's just the worry with her. I think that the striking in this one is really close, like the odds indicate, but I kind of favor Lupita in the striking, to be honest with you, especially early. I think she's got more power in the striking, better early boxer. But if I knew she was going to look to wrestle, I'm definitely lining her heavier than a minus 155 favorite, maybe even up to minus 300, to be honest with you, if you tell me for sure she's going out there to look to wrestle. So you can't really trust Godinez, but at the same time, she's the only one, in my opinion, who has a ceiling in this fight on DraftKings. So it's Lupi or pass for me. And since we're shooting for ceilings, her ceiling is through the wrestling game, and I'm going to probably get some leverage on her in hopes that she's smart and does look to wrestle this time out. But I get burned all the time by dumb fighters, so we'll see what happens.
So dumb. Lupi scored 129 DraftKings points in her Carnelosi fight against Gomez Juarez, 127. And this is the one that really stands out to me, and this is why I know that she's actually a good grappler, and she has to do it against Luma Lukbumi, who is a good grappler in her own right. She got 5 takedowns in that fight and dominated from top position. There's no reason that she should not take down Ducote, who has 100% takedown defense, but against nobody. So you cannot count this. So you look at Ducote and it's 100% takedown. Oh my God. Well, maybe she could stop a takedown. No. She stopped like Jessica Panay's 1 or 2 takedown attempts, and anybody can do that. So this is a fake number. As far as I'm concerned, we don't know what her takedown defense is, but what we do know, Ducote is sort of a stand-up striker that lost a striking battle to Angela Hill, meaning her best thing ain't that good, right? She lost.
She got pieced up.
Strike. Angela Hill landed
100 strike differential.
Yeah, Sigs. And so what's good about Emily Ducote? She didn't earn her way. Like, she beat Panay. Everybody could beat Panay as long as you keep it standing. So, like, there's nothing here that impresses me. I think Lupi wins this fight, regardless of if she chooses to use the grappling or not. But my goodness, Lupi, for the love of all DraftKings gods and everybody playing you and everybody who has faith in you, use the wrestling. Don't prove you're striking in this one. We don't care. It ain't that good. Please grapple. I think Lupi is playable in all formats, but and I did bet Lupi as well. Betting lady fights. I got to get Sun Tzu on the line here to talk some sense with me. What's that?
You did better?
Yes. After I watched the tape, I'm like, I think Lupi's a better striker also. And then I was like, well, how does she lose? I'll tell you how she loses. She loses a decision, a close striking based decision, which would suck.
Yeah. So what I do is I cap the fights, and then when I have value, I almost always bet it unless it's a fighter I can't trust. And that's where she's going to fail this one for me. But she's at this time, she's my favorite bet on the card. Definitely my favorite bet of yours that you've mentioned so far.
Okay.
But if I had to bet one money line fight, it's Lupi.
There it is. Okay. Well, that's a vote of confidence for the Lupi play. Like I said, it gets weird from here. So it keeps getting there. But as far as the DraftKings play, I just think Lupi needs, if she doesn't go for takedown, she's going to score 65 points in a win, and that's going to suck. And you know, that's in the range of shit that could happen. All right. Co-main event. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez taking on Edmund Shahbazyan. Fluffy, a minus 235 favorite. comeback on Edmund is plus 175. Fight ends inside the distance, minus 195. Now, I got to tell you something, Big Mar. When I first saw the line on this fight, I was a little surprised because I was just like a little surprised that Fluffy was getting so much respect. But in looking through his history, his recent fights, and all of that, man, I guess, you know, he deserves it. I like what he does. He's DraftKings gold. This guy knows his place. He's not the worst striker in the world, but he's going for a takedown. He's not there to throw fist. And Edmund Shahbazyan's a really good striker who has a weakness on the ground game. So, I mean, it seems like a tailor-made grappler versus striker matchup. What I like about Fluffy is when he's able to do what he wants to do, he scores really, 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 really well on DraftKings. Look at these numbers. Where's Monk Maddox for this guy? He would be like going nuts for Fluffy, I think.
Yeah, that 0 probably throws it off quite a bit. But yeah, lately, man, he is DraftKings gold because he wants to get 8 freaking takedowns in a fight and control the fight for 2 entire rounds. And that's what we love to see on DraftKings. And that's his path to victory. So this is my favorite fight on the card for DraftKings because I see it being Hernandez by a takedown heavy decision, which scores well, or a late finish, which scores well also, especially if you have the grappling leading up to it, or an early knockout from Shahbazyan. I think Shahbazyan's the better striker in this one. I think he could possibly keep it on the feet too, but I just don't think he has the cardio to deal with that heavy offensive wrestling game from Hernandez to last 3 rounds. So it's got to be an early knockout from Shahbazyan is kind of how I'm seeing it going. If Hernandez wants to go out there and strike for 3 rounds, then sure, give me Shahbazyan to win 3 rounds and maybe not score well. But in my opinion, the winner of this one's going to be around 100 or more, and I want that in 90% of my freaking lineups this week. So I'm going to pick the guy who has more ways to win, which is Hernandez. He's probably my preferred play, but this is similar to Buckley Fialjo, but even more so. I like this one more than that fight. So where I'm going to start with Fluffy in my lineup, I'm going to start building. And then if I have to go down to Edmund, I'm fine doing that. And then I'll go throw my Buckley and whoever else in there that I can afford up top. So I'm just going to really make it a point to target this fight specifically. This is where I'm going to start most of my lineups. Start with Fluffy, but at the same time, I don't want to be all in on Fluffy. I want some Shahbazyan exposure. And I mean, I've thought about picking. I don't have a kill shot yet. I've been thinking about it the last 5 minutes. He's a possible kill shot for me. We'll see once I get to that actual minute, but I've been thinking maybe he's the guy because if he wins, I think he's scoring 100 or more points and just clearly breaking the slate, which I always like in an underdog.
You know, there's a few fighters on this card that if they win, they're gonna be slate breakers. Fluffy is in that group. I would probably say Edmund is in that group as well because you're right. Edmund's path to victory is a vicious knockout, or the less likely path, which is just he keeps it striking for 3 rounds and stops the takedowns of Fluffy. I don't see that one even happening. So he keeps it standing. I think Fluffy gets knocked out because Edmund he's got good hands. Like he can knock you the fuck out. But if Fluffy's, grappling you, I think Hernandez will submit Shahbazyan very quickly. Remember, Shahbazyan got owned by Derek Brunson. Now, that was the better version of Derek Brunson from 2020.
That was one of my first all-in plays was Shahbazyan. I went like 100%.
I remember
maybe on 150 lineups, and it burned me so hard that I was like, I'm never doing that again.
I had Brunson. I liked Brunson in that one. So, I always Brunson did great for me as an underdog, but you never want him as a favorite. And now he's just quit. Like he doesn't care anymore. So it's hard when you remember the last 3 fights of Brunson. You're like, that turd won a fight, but like he wasn't that. He still gave a shit back in 2020. Like he only.
Well, the thing he was coming off of the knockout losses though, and Shahbazyan was knocking everybody out. So I just had the recency bias going on. Yeah, well, Shahbazyan's going to knock this guy out who has no chin in the first round, score 110 points. I want that in all my lineups. And then that was a very bad night for me. So still fresh in the memory.
Shahbazyan really, he was the golden boy for a minute. He was. And he's come back down to earth. Like, I mean, he was on this run. I think his most impressive might have been the fast finish on Brad Tavares, like who doesn't go down. He's not a guy that gets finished a lot, and he's a tough dude. And it's like, wow, he just knocked out Tavares that quickly. What? And that was a real eye opener. But then, after the Brunson loss, he got exposed a little bit for his grappling limitations.
I think everyone loves a good knockout, but in my opinion, his most impressive win was the Darren Stewart, where he had 8 takedowns. And he made me think he was a fucking wrestler.
Yeah, he just fooled all of us. That was he fooled everybody. I don't even get.
Yeah, so but what happens if he goes in? What happens if he takes Fluffy down? I would imagine he's okay. He probably gasses out though. If he goes out there with a wrestling game plan, so I don't think it would be smart of him. But I don't think that he's in a whole lot of trouble with Fluffy on the bottom of this one. It's just that he's going to gas out faster than Fluffy will.
Listen, as far as pay-ups on these cards go, Fluffy is not a lock button one, right? We don't have a safe. He for me does not represent like, oh, pay 9,300, lock in a win. But what we know with Fluffy is when he does win, when he can do his thing, he scores massive points.
Yeah. Right, so I would say if I'm making 150 lineups, he's probably my highest owned fighter on the entire card. But I'm definitely not starting my cash game lineup with him. It's going to start with Natalia Silva, and I probably don't even want Fluffy in there because I do think he has a 0-point floor. But since I don't know, I'm not going to play cash, but I do think he's also in play for that cash game lineup. If he wins, he's going to score very well, and you want that in your.
You'd probably be high owned enough that you're almost insulated. From
that's going to be a tricky fight for you on the championships. Like, you don't know that you want to take the floor from Fluffy, but at the same time, you don't know that you want to give 50% of the people 130 points. That's tough on him. You really after lock, send me your lineup. I'll be rooting for you.
It's a tough call because your alternative is Buckley, who can get zeroed also, or Dern, or Silva, right?
Yeah.
Dern could lose. I mean, she's not even a heavy favorite.
Dern could lose. My thing with Dern, though, is she has a much higher floor than Fluffy.
Well, she loses a 5-round striking.
Right. She loses a 5-round fight, scores well.
Probably.
Fluffy loses 0 fucking points and kills you.
Or Dern gets a takedown along the way and scores massive. It is a very, very tricky card. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with that situation because it is between you have Dern. You've got Fluffy, who scores massive when he wins, but 0 floor. You've got another massive score 0 floor guy in Buckley, and then you have sort of Natalia Silva, who is so expensive, but definitely a lock win. But is she going to score well? It is crazy. It's a really interesting one. So
I think I would really want Silva in my championship lineup just for the safety. And then just see what I could do. But, man, I have no idea. I have not found a single entry lineup I like in GPP, so I don't think I'm playing single entries. I told you before the card, I don't even think I'll be able to watch this. I'm going down to the Speedway for the Indy 500 qualification, so I won't be able to, change my lineups and shit if a fight is canceled. So I'm probably just going to play small, 5 or less lineups and just hope to get lucky,
I'm telling you, there are multiple fights on this card that look like they're going to score really well, and we'll go through them at the end. But there are a few fights. I think this is a good fight for DraftKings. Yes, there's mysteries all over the place, especially in cash. But in tournaments, I don't care. I'm loading up on Fluffy in tournament. Like I'm loading up on that fight in tournaments. I'm just overloading to some of these fights in tournaments and saying I don't care if you get me a 0. I don't care. That lineup wasn't winning anyway. Like I only care about winning the tournament. So I like these kind of fights that have these crazy, wild outcomes. All right. So main event of the night, they moved this one over from last week to this week to be the main event. And that's Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill. And you'll note here, Big Marley, that these are close odds for good reason. Dern is a -170 favorite. The comeback on Hill is +150. Now, what's surprising about that is Hill is kind of like a journeywoman fighter. I mean, she's a good striker. I think she's a very, very good striker, actually. But, not a championship contender or anything, and has an obvious flaw in her game, in terms of her not her wrestling. She's fine, but her BJJ in general is not the best. Dern, on the other hand, is known as the greatest female BJJ practitioner in the biz. We haven't really seen it, though, because she doesn't really have a whole lot of ability to get a fight to the ground. And I think she'll have a hard time against Angela Hill getting a takedown because Angela Hill has very, very good takedown defense. She's not easy to take down, and she's definitely not easy for someone like Dern, who's not good at getting takedowns. So what do you see? How do you see this one going down, Big Marley? You think Dern can get this takedown? The fight goes to decision is minus 150. That's a 5-rounder, man. That's a lot of points.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, since it's 5 rounds, it's one that we probably have to target pretty heavily because Angela Hill in 5 rounds, if she wins, she has 100-point upside in a decision with the volume that she could put up on the feet because she's going to have the striking edge. She has to keep this fight on the feet. But I do give her a striking edge, but it's not as big of an edge as I give Dern on the ground. That's just, in my opinion, complete domination. So it could only take one takedown. And I had Yan Zionin like 3 units on Yan because I favored her. I had it as a 50-50 fight, but I gave her the 48 to 53% rather than the 47 to 52% in my capping. And she was plus 200. And I thought Dern with her like 6% takedown accuracy, I just can't trust on her to win when she submission or bust. It was closer than I thought because she did actually get like 2 or more takedowns in that fight, and she controlled the fight for a long time on the ground, but she didn't submit her. I see this as kind of the same, except that I think Dern has a bigger edge and a more likely edge to get the fight to the ground against Hill than she did Yan. So since Dern did better than I thought she would in that last fight, she scored 94 fucking DraftKings points and a loss. So that's 124 points with a decision win. I'm on the Dern side. I think that with 5 rounds to work with, she's going to end up finding a submission. I'd rather just play the submission prop though, because I don't want to lay she's almost minus 200. The line's been coming down on her, so she might end up getting a little bit playable here later in the week. But the way I see it going down is Dern finds a way to get the fight to the ground. She submits her just like Randa Marcos did, and she made it look easy. So if Marcos can make it look easy, I think Dern can make it look easy. She's my preferred play, but it's an all-in fight for me. I'm probably going to have this fight in every lineup. It's also a good stack fight, in my opinion.
It is very stackable in cash. I'm not going to have this in every lineup. There's definitely a scenario for me where Dern wins a decision, but didn't get a lot of grappling in and didn't actually score enough compared to Buckley and Fluffy if they win their fights, or even Borschev if he wins a fast finish. There are just so many fights on this card that can score well. Like Hooper could score 130 in a win if he gets it. There are too many fights.
Maybe I shouldn't say all in.
Yeah,
but with the 3 lineups that I built so far, I was really targeting this fight, Shahbazyan fight, and the Buckley fight. So it was like I'm just going not all in, but these are my core fights, and I want to just be very exposed to both sides of them, and then we'll fit in all these other mid-range fights that could score well as well. So that's my approach for this card.
I feel that, and I agree. I think again, I'm going to brief run through the card, but yeah, I agree. The main event got to get some exposure. Shahbazyan Hernandez definitely want exposure to that one, right? Ducote Godinez, meh. Fialjo Buckley, yes, but not lock all in because it's a knockout or bust kind of situation, and the bust is real. Johnson Ferreira, meh, right? Mahasate Borschev, I'm interested. KK, not at all. Demopolos, yes. Cosi Urbina, I think, is going to be the sneaky high scoring fight of the card. I like this one.
I hate it, but I like it
for scoring. It's hard to pick a winner.
I hate that I have to like it. Is I guess a better way to say it.
But you got to have a piece of that. Latifi Nascimento, you can skip it. Hooper Fiore, hell yeah, that's another one that will would score well.
Yeah, real good one target there too.
Yeah, and then De Silva's so expensive she could be ignored. And finally, Sato Garimbo. Again, that's sort of a neutral fight. So I think there are fights that you want to load up on and very clearly, and other fights you want to just mix into your mass multi-entry. I think there's it's going to be a tough week for cash. It's going to be a tough week for safety. It's going to be a tough week for the MMA championships. And figuring out what to do. Yeah, there are people who have 5 entries, 4 entries still in round 2.
Yeah. So how many is it? 40 down to, you said 16?
This is 40 and it's going on. Your boy McLovin, he's got 4 left, 4 or 5. He's one of the only ones. He used the exact same lineup I did last week, and he played all of them with that lineup.
Damn. Well, Mock, if you're listening, man, if you don't want to go to Jacksonville, holler at your boy.
He doesn't. I
got my Mock Lovin name tag around here somewhere. Here it
is. He's not listening, Big Marley. It's fine. He's busy. I
Lovin,
remember you as Mock Lovin at one of what was it? One of the other things I went to. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, when me and Tampa went to
King of the Beach,
right? Beach, we were his proxy, and he told me to just wear his name tag and act like I was him. And everyone was coming up to me, being like, "Man, you've taken so much money to me." I was like, "Good thing it's a bunch of dorks, man. I'd probably get beat up if this is a crowd of tough guys."
Yeah, it's a good thing you're rocking the sleeveless 17-inch guns over there. They're like, want to fuck with you. They're like, no, it's not happening. All right, it's time for the kill shot. And guys, if you're watching, first hit the like button. I'm gonna do it now. Like, subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. Let us know what you thought of the format this week. We're just changing up the format of the show, and this week we went with conversational. Sorry, a little behind the scenes podcasting stuff. A little more back and forth rather than you speak, I speak. Let me know how you felt about that. Do you like the format? How do you like the format? We'll have Monk back. I think next week he's in some transitional moving stuff, so he'll be back with us soon.
Probably just have to move the show back to nighttime, so hopefully you guys can all tune in at 9-ish Eastern.
That screws me. I'm home all day.
I know. I like the early times.
So, kill shot. Last week I took Brian Battle, and I am now we have a behind the scenes kill shot competition. I might be so prohibitively favored at this point that it's uncatchable. I think it might be too late for you, Big Marley. I think we got a few more cards left on the contest, but man, everybody blew it last week, and then Battle comes through with the fast finish under 60 seconds. What?
Yeah, I feel like I was on like a kill shot hot streak, and then we started this damn competition, and I can't get one right.
It's been spectacular. So pay me, motherfuckers. I think I'm like 10-2 or something ridiculous, and they're all underdogs. If you were betting my kill shots, you're upgrading your house right now from what you lived in when you started to a better one. That's what the kill shot streak has looked like. And I will have a kill shot this week as well. But I'm going to Big Marley. Marley's like, I don't know who my kill shot is. I'm going to give you the whole card to pick from. Now, remember, if you're watching the show for the first time, the kill shot's an underdog that we think is going to go under the radar, but help you win the tournament this week. So it is an underdog play like Brian Battle last week. No battle, no money. He was low owned. So there's a lot of live dogs on this card, Big Marley. Where are you going with it?
Damn. All right. So I think. How about you go? No, because you're not going to take either.
I've got two that I'm very comfortable with.
Okay. Well, I got 2 that I'm not comfortable at all with, and they are Edmund Shahbazyan as the potential slate breaker in the fight that I really want to target, and Gilbert Urbina in the fight that I just have no freaking idea what's going to happen, but they both have 100-point upside. So Urbina or Shahbazyan would be my 2 kill shots. I'll have to let you guys know in Discord for the official one. So if you're not in there already, get in the DFS Army Discord, and I'll finalize it before these fights start.
All right, I'm going to go with the kill shot that will win you the tournament, because I've got 2, and I will let you know who they both are. And if you've watched the entire hour, you already probably have an idea. But I'm going with Chase Hooper as my kill shot. I think he can execute some grappling here. I can get takedowns. I think his opponent will go for takedowns. And I just think there's going to be reversals and all kinds of scoring going on there. Hooper's still an underdog, so that is an official usable kill shot at plus 100.
Yeah.
And my other one is Vanessa Demopolos, who I mentioned earlier as well. I think Karolina Kabulkavich is just quitting. I don't think she cares. I like that Vanessa is on the ups. I like that she's on an awesome Factory X team with some really good training partners now that she wasn't on like 2 years ago. So she should be making improvements to her game. I think Karolina is on her way out the door. and Vanessa D, Vanny D. She's got a fun little personality too. I watched an interview with Vanessa, and she's got a nice little personality. She's very bubbly.
Former stripper, right?
No, is she?
I believe so.
Oh, what are you now? You're ruining it for me. Now you're ruining it.
I could be wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, Vanessa.
Oh my God. If that's not true and you just put that out there, that's so fucked up. So I really hope that what you just said is true.
I think so.
All
right.
right.
I could be wrong. I've been wrong before once.
Oh my goodness. Well, stripping and MMA, those two things do not mix at all for me. It's not, they don't go together. But anyway,
I bet strippers have to fight all the time. So
yeah, but like, you actually fight off men. So I guess it's true. But those are my kill shots for this one. Let us know who your kill shot is in the comment section below. If you like this DraftKings focus breakdowns that we do here, a little bit of betting, little taste some betting action as well. If you like it, let us know. Hit the like button. Let us know in the comments. Hey, I like the style. I like the format. I don't. Should we throw this behind the paywall? Go back to DFS Army only? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Meanwhile, if you're not signed up at DFS Army, of course, as always, get signed up as VIP. We are crushing it across all sports in DFS Army. MMA, we got an MMA only sub where you can get all of Marley's breakdowns, the picks. We got picks from all of the pros in DFS Army and our chat and all that good stuff, the domination station optimizer, projections, ownerships, all of the great things that you want. We're crushing MMA, the Dom Station. There is no tool better to attack tournaments than the Domination Station Optimizer. This is a great week, again, for fantasy points in a win projections rather than the regular fantasy projection. So make sure to flip the switch to fantasy points in a win if you watched this far. I did that last week, had a really good finish as well. So do that what you will with that. Do what you will with that. And we will be, what else? I don't know. All right, that'll do it, man. We'll be back next week with another breakdown. I put out one more thing. I put out a Prize Picks breakdown video. I'm not going to mix it in with this one, but I also broke this down for Prize Picks. I've got 5 plays that I love and 3 that I absolutely think you can use as core plays that you can mix with other pairs. Will Lentz drop in Prize Picks plays nonstop along with Sniper in the DFS Army Prize Picks Discord. Again, VIPs get access to that, or you can sign up for the Prize Picks Prop 20 promo code, gets you 20% off on that one. Sleeveless promo code Sleeveless gets you 10% off DFS Army VIP, the best deal in daily fantasy sports. So make sure you get signed up there as well. We will see you guys next time. Peace, and hopefully when I'll be back, I'll be headed to the MMA championships. We'll see.
Hell yeah. Good luck,
Find
man.
out. Take care, everybody.